January 24th, 2024. 0900 hours local time. Belgorod Oblast, Russian Federation, approximately 15 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Multiple witnesses record video showing a large aircraft trailing smoke and debris descending rapidly from altitude. The aircraft impacts in an open field near the village of Yablanovo. Russian state media immediately reports the incident. The Russian Ministry of Defense issues a statement claiming the aircraft was an Ilyushin IL-76 military transport carrying 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war being transported for an exchange, along with 6 crew members and 3 escorts. The statement alleges Ukrainian air defense forces shot down the aircraft using 2 missiles launched from Kharkiv Oblast. Ukrainian officials respond with conflicting information. The Ukrainian Military Intelligence Directorate confirms a prisoner exchange was scheduled, but questions Russian claims about the aircraft's cargo and circumstances. The Security Service of Ukraine states they cannot confirm the presence of prisoners on board without access to evidence. Ukrainian Air Force initially does not confirm or deny conducting operations in the area. The divergence in official narratives creates immediate analytical challenges. Skyfall Warfare examines available evidence systematically. Multiple videos emerge showing the aircraft's final moments. Geolocation analysis by open-source intelligence analysts, including Bellingcat and OSINT Technical, confirms the crash site coordinates as approximately 49.9 degrees north, 36.7 degrees east. Flight tracking data from commercial monitoring services shows an aircraft signal disappearing from radar at 0857 hours UTC in the reported location. The aircraft type, confirmed through visual analysis of debris, matches the IL-76 designation claimed by Russian sources. Wing structure, engine configuration, and tail assembly fragments visible in crash site imagery correspond to Ilyushin design specifications. The IL-76, a Soviet-era strategic transport aircraft, remains in active service with Russian military forces primarily for logistics and personnel movement. Which factor was most critical here? A. Intelligence failure. B. Equipment limitations. C. Tactical surprise. The weapon system question proves central to understanding the incident. Russian officials claim 2 missiles were responsible. Ukrainian air defense capabilities in Kharkiv Oblast at this time frame include several systems theoretically capable of engaging targets at the necessary range. Patriot systems, provided by Western allies, possess range exceeding 100 kilometers under optimal conditions. S-300 systems, part of Ukraine's legacy air defense network, can engage targets at similar ranges when configured for anti-aircraft operations. The tactical geometry matters significantly. Belgorod Oblast represents a critical logistics hub for Russian forces. The region hosts multiple military airfields, including Belgorod International Airport, used for military transport operations. Aircraft departing these facilities typically climb to cruising altitude while still over Russian territory, placing them within theoretical engagement range of Ukrainian air defense systems positioned near the border. Open-source analysts examine the debris field distribution. Wreckage spreads across approximately 200 meters of agricultural land. This pattern suggests high-altitude breakup rather than low-altitude impact. Aircraft experiencing catastrophic structural failure at altitude typically produce widely dispersed debris fields as components separate during descent. The damage to the aircraft appears consistent with missile impact, though other failure modes, including mechanical malfunction or internal explosion, could produce similar results without physical evidence of external weapons. The prisoner exchange context requires examination. Ukrainian and Russian forces conducted periodic exchanges throughout the conflict, with international mediators frequently involved. The logistics of such exchanges typically involve advanced coordination through intermediary channels. Ukrainian officials state an exchange was planned for January 24th, but assert they received no notification about the specific transport method or flight path. This communication gap, if accurate, raises questions about coordination protocols. Russian state media releases footage from the crash site showing military personnel examining wreckage. The imagery reveals scattered debris, but provides limited detail about the aircraft's cargo. No verified independent media access to the site occurs in the immediate aftermath. Russian authorities control the crash location and subsequent investigation. Ukrainian prisoners' families and advocacy groups demand evidence. The Ukrainian Coordination Headquarters for the Treatment of Prisoners of War calls for international investigation. Russia provides a list of names allegedly corresponding to prisoners on board. Ukrainian authorities begin verification process, contacting families of listed individuals. Several families report their relatives were indeed scheduled for exchange, though this confirmation does not establish their presence on the specific flight. Have you seen the satellite images from this strike? Check the sources linked in description. The air defense engagement scenario requires technical analysis. If Ukrainian forces targeted the aircraft, several tactical questions emerge. First, identification. How did operators distinguish this transport from other aircraft operating in Belgorod Oblast? Russian military aircraft, both combat and transport types, frequently operate from regional airfields. Ukrainian air defense doctrine, particularly with Western-supplied systems, emphasizes positive identification before engagement. Second, decision authority. Engaging targets deep in Russian territory carries significant strategic implications. Ukrainian military command structure typically requires high-level authorization for such strikes. The engagement decision timeline becomes relevant. If operators detected an aircraft approaching from Belgorod, identified it as military transport, and engaged within minutes, this suggests pre-existing authorization for targets in that category. Alternative explanations are in consideration. Russian surface-to-air systems operate extensively in Belgorod Oblast, providing defense for military installations and logistics routes. Friendly fire incidents, while embarrassing for any military, occur with documented frequency in high-tempo operations. The region's dense air defense coverage creates multiple opportunities for identification errors or coordination failures. Mechanical failure represents another possibility. The IL-76 fleet in Russian service averages decades of operational use. Maintenance standards, component availability, and operational tempo all affect airworthiness. Catastrophic mechanical failures, while less common than other incident types, occur across all aircraft fleets regardless of maintenance quality. The strategic implications extend beyond the immediate incident. If Ukrainian forces conducted the strike, it demonstrates willingness and capability to engage targets in Russian airspace, expanding the operational envelope significantly. If Russian air defense mistakenly engaged its own aircraft, it reveals coordination and identification failures in their defensive network. If mechanical failure caused the crash, it highlights potential systemic issues in Russian military transport fleet readiness. International reactions follow predictable patterns. Russian officials demand international condemnation of what they characterize as a war crime. The Russian Foreign Ministry summons ambassadors from multiple Western nations, alleging complicity through weapons provision. Ukrainian officials call for independent investigation while questioning Russian narrative consistency. Western governments generally avoid definitive statements pending evidence review, with most calling for transparent investigation. Which system proves most effective in this conflict? A. Long-range missiles. B. Drone swarms. C. Combined operations. The weeks following the incident bring limited additional clarity. Russia announces investigation results on February 6th, claiming conclusive evidence of Ukrainian missile strike, but releasing minimal supporting data to international observers. Ukraine maintains its position of uncertainty regarding the aircraft's cargo and circumstances. No international investigation team gains access to the crash site or debris for independent analysis. Families of Ukrainian prisoners remain without definitive answers. The Ukrainian government establishes a commission to investigate circumstances, but lacks access to primary evidence. The prisoner exchange scheduled for January 24th does not occur. Subsequent exchanges proceed but with heightened security measures and different logistics protocols. The pattern suggests both sides adapted procedures regardless of the incident's actual cause. The tactical lessons depend heavily on which explanation proves accurate. If air defense engagement occurred, both sides confront new realities. Ukrainian capability to target aircraft over Russian territory, if confirmed, changes Russian military aviation planning for logistics flights. Flight paths, altitudes, and routing all require reassessment for transport operations near the border region. Russian forces would need to expand defensive measures or modify transport procedures to reduce vulnerability. For Ukrainian forces, the incident, regardless of cause, raises difficult questions about target identification and engagement authorities in ambiguous situations. The fog of war metaphor proves literal in this case. Multiple plausible explanations exist. Evidence remains incomplete, contradictory, or inaccessible. The incident occurs in airspace where surveillance from independent observers faces limitations. Both parties possess strong incentives to shape narratives supporting their strategic messaging. Does this pattern indicate a shift in Russian or Ukrainian strategy? Comment your analysis. The investigation gap reveals broader challenges in modern conflict documentation. Unlike incidents occurring in areas with robust international presence or comprehensive satellite coverage, this event unfolds over territory under Russian control with limited independent observation. The aircraft's black box flight recorders, if recovered, could provide definitive data on the failure sequence. But Russian authorities have not released any such information publicly, nor invited international aviation safety organizations to participate in analysis. The prisoner of war dimension adds layers of complexity beyond pure military analysis. International humanitarian law, specifically the Geneva Conventions, establishes protections for prisoners during transport. If prisoners were aboard and the aircraft was clearly marked for protected status, specific obligations apply. Russian statements claim the aircraft displayed appropriate markings, but verification proves impossible without access or imagery. Ukrainian responses emphasize absence of notification about the transport, which if accurate could indicate protocol violations regardless of the downing mechanism. Comparative incidents from military aviation history provide limited guidance. Transport aircraft losses during conflicts occur from multiple causes, including air defense, mechanical failure, and operational errors. The unique circumstances here, specifically the prisoner transport claim and conflicting narratives from both parties, reduce applicability of historical precedents. The information environment surrounding the incident demonstrates modern conflict dynamics. Within hours of the crash, multiple videos appear on social media platforms. Russian and Ukrainian sources both rapidly disseminate competing narratives. International media organizations attempt verification, but face source limitations and access restrictions. OSINT analysts work to establish basic facts including location, aircraft type, and timing, but cannot penetrate the fundamental questions about cause and cargo. By February, the incident recedes from immediate news attention, though investigations allegedly continue. Families of the men whose names appeared on Russian lists maintain pressure for answers. Ukrainian advocacy groups demand transparency. Russian media periodically references the incident in broader narratives about the conflict. The lack of resolution becomes another element in the accumulated ambiguities of the war. If you follow verified military analysis, type verified. The tactical adaptations following the incident appear in subsequent operations. Russian military transport flights in the border regions show change patterns based on flight tracking data. Aircraft maintain greater distances from Ukrainian-controlled territory when possible, accept longer routing, or operate at different altitudes. Ukrainian air defense positioning, to the extent observable through open-source methods, shows no dramatic shifts, though operational security likely increases. The strategic communication battle continues. Russian officials periodically reference the incident when discussing Ukrainian military operations or Western weapons provision. The narrative frames Ukrainian forces as indiscriminately targeting civilian-related assets. Ukrainian officials counter by emphasizing lack of evidence and Russian refusal to permit independent investigation. Neither side's claims receive universal acceptance in international forums. The fundamental questions remain unresolved months after the incident. Was the aircraft carrying Ukrainian prisoners as Russia claims? If so, how many and under what circumstances? What caused the catastrophic failure and crash? Was it missile strike, mechanical failure, or another cause? If a missile strike occurred, who fired it and under what authorization? The evidence available to outside observers cannot definitively answer these questions. Russian control of the crash site, debris, and any human remains means primary evidence remains inaccessible for independent verification. Ukrainian forces, if they possess relevant operational data, have not released it publicly. International observers lack access to either side's classified intelligence. What tactical adaptation should we watch for next? Share your thoughts. The incident stands as a case study in the challenges of conflict documentation when key evidence remains controlled by parties with vested interests in particular narratives. Traditional investigation models assuming access, transparency, and cooperation do not apply. The result is persistent ambiguity that serves neither truth nor accountability. The families of those potentially killed deserve answers. The military forces on both sides need clear understanding of what occurred to prevent similar tragedies. The international community requires facts to assess responsibilities under international humanitarian law. None of these needs are currently met. The documentation remains incomplete. Video confirms an IL-76 crashed near Yablanovo on January 24th. The cause of the crash remains disputed. The cargo of the aircraft remains unverified. The tactical and strategic implications vary dramatically depending on which explanation proves accurate, assuming definitive truth eventually emerges. Skyfall Warfare continues monitoring for new evidence or official statements that might clarify the incident. Until such information becomes available, analysis must acknowledge the uncertainty while documenting what can be verified. The crash occurred. The competing claims exist. The resolution remains distant. Real events. Real ambiguity, real analysis. Subscribe to Skyfall Warfare for documented analysis of real aerial warfare. Sources in description.